Hello everyone, and welcome to the next edition of the Holland Land Office Museum's Artifact Video Series. My name is Ryan Duffy and I'm the director of the museum. And this week we're going to talk about another one of Batavia's well-known businesses, the Baker Gun Company. Now the history of the Baker Gun Company does not start in Batavia. Like many other businesses, the company moves to Batavia. But the Baker Gun Company actually begins its life in Syracuse. It was started by two brothers, Dr. Ellis L. Baker and his brother William. Now Ellis sort of was the businessman and William was the designer, and his designs would stay with the company basically throughout its entirety as a gun company. Now the Baker brothers really get their start in the late 1880s up until 1890. They had previously worked for another gun company called the Syracuse Forging Company, which is where they got their start in making guns and other armaments. However, with the burning of that plant, they decided to set it on their own, but decided to get out of Syracuse and out from under the shadow of their previous employers and eventually moved to Batavia. Now, William Baker, who was the designer of the guns, was rather prolific and his designs would be used for 30 years. However, he would die soon after they moved to Batavia, about 1890. This left Ellis sort of on his own in order to take on the business and make it successful. To do this, he actually gave up his medical practice to focus exclusively on running the plant. He found this to be rather difficult, and by 1898 he had actually left the management of the plant altogether. And this had been passed on to other individuals. Frank A. Holland, who was responsible for putting out a lot of the patents for the company in the 1890s and into the very early part of the 20th century. Now, the shotgun business was rather difficult, and the Baker Company was sort of caught up in a rather changing landscape for shotguns, though was able to weather the storm for some time, but they really didn't hit their stride until the first decade of the 1900s, when they brought out their Batavia line. This was seen as their everyman's line, the inexpensive line that every huntsman or gun enthusiast could buy and have a high quality shotgun without having to spend a lot of money. This was quite different than their first line, which was called the Paragons, which were a more highly decorative and expensive model that really pertained to a higher level of income. However, this was not a good enough business model in order for the companies to succeed, which is where the Batavia Series comes in. The Batavia Series comes out beginning in 1903 and has several different levels within that. They include several evolutions, including the Batavia Gunner, the Batavia Leader, and the Batavia Special, as well as the Batavia Damascus, which was a little bit higher end. And you had varying grades that were given to these guns, A, B, C, and so on. A being the highest and going down was slightly lesser quality, but still was a good gun for your average owner. And these guns were rather inexpensive for the time. A Batavia Leader, which I have situated in front of us, we have two different examples of them, cost about $25 in 1909. A decent amount of money, but for this type of weapon was within the means of a lot of people. And this made the Baker shotguns a rather popular weapon, especially for huntsmen and sportsmen. That's what these guns are designed for. For instance, the Batavia Leader, I'll hold up here. These are the double barrel style, simple lock at the back. Pop in your shells and you're good to go. This is a rather basic looking one, but they could be rather well engraved and look rather stylish, which would obviously drive up the price of them, but be a more decorative piece in the end. The Baker Gun Company continued with their shotgun line until 1909, until they took on a large order of rifles from the Feminger Company of New Orleans, where they promised to make 20,000 of these rifles. However, the demand was just too much and they weren't able to keep up with that order, and it caused them to default on it, which led to several financial difficulties with the company. The company eventually is taken over by the Bank of Batavia in 1919 due to these financial difficulties, and has to go through major shifts in its business policies and what it starts to produce. In 1930, the company ceases to be a gun company. It actually switches over to automobiles and other metal manufacturing parts, as this was seen as the way of the future, and that the gun history of the company was really not viable anymore. Now, the Baker Gun Company actually was situated in sort of an odd spot. They actually moved into the old Union Schoolhouse at the corner of School Street and Liberty Street. If you go to the Mancuso bowling alley or T.F. Brown's, that parking lot is basically where the Baker Gun Company once stood. They eventually expanded as they switched over to automobile and other metal manufacturing, though really the company ceases to be by the late 1950s. But they left their mark on Batavia and on the gun collecting world, as you can still find Bakers out out in the wild, and is rather well sought after by gun collectors, bringing in hundreds of dollars. But there is a special mention with the Baker Gun Company, as it actually got one of Genesee County's most famous artists his start. If any of you are familiar with the Mason family of painters, the father, Frank Mason, actually got his start working for the Baker Gun Company as an engraver, where he used his artistic talents to create some rather beautiful weapons. I wish we had one of those on the museum, but sadly we don't. But if you happen to see one of those, they are very special and are extraordinary in their detail. And you can see where his artistic talents was not only with a paintbrush, but also could be done with this different setting. So I hope you enjoyed this edition of the Artifact video series. If you happen to miss any of the previous one, I think this is our 16th or 17th one we've done, be sure to check out our website or our Facebook page, and you can go back and watch all of the rest of them. All of these are uploaded to the channel, Holland Land Office Museum, and you can check out all of them there. And I hope you stick around for our future ones as well.